Hi guys, my name is Nate. I am also a RL manager like you guys selves. Does anyone know what the 18th Amendment is and what it did to the country during the 1920s?
Was it Roe versus Wade?
No, it was not Roe versus Wade. That's a little later on, like the 30s and 40s.
Does it have to do with alcohol?
It does have to do with alcohol, you're right. The 18th Amendment brought along with it prohibition, which made the sale, production, and consumption of alcohol illegal in the United States. What's really interesting, living in Michigan now, I'm personally from the Chicagoland area, but what's really neat about Michigan is they actually started their prohibition in 1918, which I just thought was a little neat fact that we can highlight on earlier. But where are you guys from? I said I'm from Chicago. Where are you guys from?
I'm from Detroit, the Detroit area.
Awesome. There's some shenanigans that went down there, absolutely.
I am
So close to the border.
from Traverse City, Michigan.
That is neat. I don't know too much about it, but there is a character that we'll discuss that potentially may or may not have had a home there. So when you guys think of Chicago and Prohibition,
Al Capone.
Thank you. Yes, Al Capone comes to mind. I think he comes to mind. That's what everyone always asks when they ask about Chicago. Like Al Capone, gangsters, this, that, and the other thing. Do you guys think Al Capone spent any time here in the UP? Maybe even around the Marquette area. What do you guys think?
Heck yeah, he did.
Why do you think he spent time here?
Vacations.
Vacations, absolutely. This hustle and bustle of the city, those gangsters like to just get away and hide by themselves out in the trees. It was said allegedly that Al Capone had a place over in Hayward, Wisconsin. It is also said he had a place near Escanaba. So, although allegedly, nothing officially proved it. There's a story from a corner store worker that said Al Capone one day just came in and bought a pack of cigarettes and gave $5, just left it there for everybody, for all the little kids to have candy for the day. So it was a really cool, fun little story that I found in my book. The Prohibition and the Marquette here in the Upper Peninsula, which is by Russell M. Magny. Super interesting book. I was able to meet the guy who literally wrote the book on Prohibition, so super fortunate to meet him. So we could discuss about this.
Nice.
So, like you said earlier, Al Capone came up here for fun. I will agree with that, and so does Russell. What's another reason why you think he came here? What did he do for a living?
He was a gangster.
He was a gangster. What do gangsters do?
They sell illegal items.
There you go. So, we're going to assume he came up here to figure out some trade routes and stuff. And we're going to assume that that correction is right, that he did come up here to find new trade routes from Canada through Lake Superior down into Chicago, because there's a crackdown over in Detroit and on the Detroit River between that and Windsor, Canada, with the Coast Guard. It was just simply too easy, so they had to crack down on it. Versus Superior is a huge match with we can call it a land ocean, freshwater ocean, because it is that big. So there was not nearly enough, and most of them were even sometimes paid off. The Coast Guard and everybody were paid off, so it wasn't a big deal. So yeah, that's what Al Capone came up here for. So, if he came up here, do you guys know that a good location around the Marquette area that would potentially be used for smuggling in? We're going to try to stay away from like the ore dock and like the normal shipping areas that you'd see normal boats coming in. Do you guys know of anything that might, any areas like that?
Rum runners.
Rum runners! Yeah, it's over by Wetmore Landing, that way. Over there. And then as you can see in my fun pictures that I have sitting out on the tables, you can tell that the Rum Runners location is a very unique location to the shoreline, because it created a little cove in there. As you can see, there's a big rock wall on one side, so it would hide a boat from passing by ships or the Coast Guard if they weren't paid off in that scenario. But as you look at those pictures, you can see, because unfortunately we're not able to visit the location, so we're just going off the pictures. You can see that's a pretty small area. So, do you think like a boat would be able to even fit into there?
Not a big one.
Not a big one. So, how they actually went about doing it is they would have little speedboats that they would start kind of like NASCAR. Have you ever thought of NASCAR and road smuggling back then? Down there, they would, the moonshine runners, they would just hop up all their cars, and that's eventually how NASCAR started. That's what they would do up here too. They would just hop up their boats, and so they would be faster than everybody else. And what would happen was, there'd be a big freighter, let's say there'd be like 1,000 cases of Canadian Club, which is Al Capone's favorite whiskey. Fun fact. Which is like right here. Fun fact. Favorite whiskey, and the only way you can get that, his favorite whiskey, is from Canada. So they'd have their big freighter, And then they'd have a bunch of little speedboats, we'll say 2 at a time roughly, and they would fill them up, either like 10, maybe 11 cases, which each had like roughly 10 to 15 bottles in them. And they would fly into rum runners, and then as you can see in the pictures, my friends are hooking up their slack line to them, there's eye boats. So quick attach and quick detach from the line, so the boat was stable enough to get them on and off without breaking any. So that was a super neat location, and I loved hearing about it and learning so much about that, and hearing fun stories from Russell about that, and then dropping it and stuff like that. And that's why if you ever go and check out that location, that's why there's actually steps there, like man-made steps. So it'd make it even easier for them to get stuff on and off the boats in the middle of the night, in the cold, the rain, all weather conditions, because Prohibition had been going on for many years. So now that we've got we know like the routes and everything, and what it was used for. How do you think the average Joe, like ourselves, back in this time would have gotten alcohol? Bring it back to home so it was safely to drink. We weren't going to like a speakeasy or anything like that. We could go to speakeasies, but those make it pop, so we're going to try and be a little safer.
I have no idea.
Well, there's this wonderful story, yeah. So there's this wonderful story about an old cop named Albert Bates. He was a cop, and it started in like 1915 for the Marquette County, and the Marquette City. And come 1918, when Michigan proposed their prohibition, he was like, I'm done being a cop. I don't see the point for this. I don't like this rule, so he stopped being a cop. And what he did was he owned his own dry cleaning place right next door to the police station on Berger Street, which, if you guys know, that's right around where Breakers is too. And what he would do is he had a friend in cahoots down at the bottom of the Berger Street who was a U.S. Coast Guard and worked the port there. He had a friend, and they would smuggle in all their alcohol from there, so not being like Al Capone and the other rum runners using the rum runners location, they had enough people and connections to smuggle it right into Lower Harbor right there. And they'd be stored down in that one in the building down there, and then every night he'd bring it back up. Ed would bring all of his rum back up into his dry cleaning business, and then what he would do is everybody that would come in, they would say their little talk, their little spiel, their coat, and they would hand him their coats. And what he would do with each of their fun coats is he would have make fun little pockets like this, so they were able to smuggle the booze in and out with anybody noticing, because you have a big coat on. It's Marquette, it's cold up here. You can hide a lot of boozes in your coat, and it doesn't even look like you're hiding them. Case in point. So it was a super neat way to do it, and eventually what was really cool is he never actually got caught or anything like that. No records for a charge, and it was just a fun story that Russell was able to find through combing through the archives and word-of-mouth stories. So just to conclude, there's no hard evidence that Al Capone really was up here, but there's nothing that says he really did it. We know he had a place in Hayward, supposedly one over in Escanaba, and was a shipping area over there. A couple places in the Sioux potentially, but definitely traveled through the UP and the Marquette area. Absolutely, no question about it. Rob even said, if you don't believe me, you can go talk to him about it. He's the guy who wrote the book on it, so I'm going to believe him. The Superior Shoreline also played the key role in the selling of and moving of illegal alcohol through the United States. The rum runners location, the effect that actually played, and the ability of that natural cove helped them to be able to hide as well as quickly unload and offload rum, cash, Canadian club whiskey like Al Capone might. So much wonderful, always hiding some, you never know. And then the last one, the fun story about Ed Bates and how he was able to saw an opportunity and took it and conquered it and made a bunch of money through selling of illegal alcohol through his dry cleaning business with his son. You guys have any final questions for me?
Do you know how much money they made?
So what we know, we don't actually know how much money Ed made or anyone around here can find any hard evidence, but we can say broader picture, we'll talk about Al Capone. Al Capone did get arrested for tax evasion, so we know he never actually filed any taxes. Why would he? But we can assume he made about $100 million, roughly a year, during the Prohibition era, smuggling all that. And that's, of course, that's him personally making it. That doesn't include him having to pay off everybody and all those other wonderful things that he had to do with all his money, so he would stay out of jail. Unfortunately, it didn't work for him. Anything else? Any final questions? GoPro, stop recording.